What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I would like to give you guys my thoughts on training camp, the first week of training camp. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys continuing to tune into the channel, continuing to share out my content on all the social media platforms. If you would like to follow your boy on Twitter and Instagram, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. If you would like to donate to my channel, you can donate to my Cash App, which is the $ Jew Talk Sports, or you can join my Jew Talk Sports membership just by hitting the join tab here on the channel as well. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So as I mentioned in today's video, I do want to talk about the first week of training camp and give my thoughts. So yesterday, things got really chippy at practice and at training camp. There was a couple fights that broke out, and Arthur Smith and both Dean Pease stated that it was a very spirited practice. Arthur Smith stated that this was one of the best practices that he's had as a head coach of the Atlanta Falcons because guys was out there being very aggressive. I believe a couple fights also broke out during practice between the defensive line and the offensive line, I believe it was. So I'm definitely happy to see these guys are out there being aggressive. Dean Pease talked about the aggressiveness of this team and that the team needs to be more aggressive. Both him and Arthur Smith, they want these guys to play with a chip on their shoulder. And we're seeing that so far in training camp that these guys are getting frustrated out there. These guys want to win. And I don't necessarily like the fighting necessarily, but I do like that these guys are not accepting losing. And that's something that Dean Pease talked about, that these guys have to learn how to fight back, how to defend themselves, and how to be the aggressor out there on the football field, because football is a very tough sport, and football is a sport that you have to impose your will on your opponent. So I'm definitely happy to see that guys are out there competing, fighting against each other for these positions. They're making these players compete. And the biggest thing I took from both Arthur Smith and Dean Pease during their media session after training camp was accountability. That was the word that I took from what both Dean Pease and what Arthur Smith are saying. They're holding these players accountable, making these guys compete for positions. Things are really heating up in the different matchups that's out there. There's been a couple of standouts so far in training camp that I want to mention. On the offensive side of the ball so far, Marcus Mariota, he's been one of those guys. Both him and Desmond Ridder, they say, have looked really sharp out there. But they said the ball placement yesterday was crisp. They were putting the ball in good positions, both Mariota and Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder has done a good job as the understudy to Marcus Mariota. But Marcus Mariota looks like he's coming into his own. Both Arthur Smith talked about Marcus Mariota being in great rhythm as far as throwing the ball and his timing and things of that nature. Marcus Mariota is also out there showing the wheels. He's out there running and things of that nature. Of course, right now they're not live tackling and things of that nature. So when he breaks the pocket, I'm not getting, over excited about seeing Marcus Mariota run in these practices. But they did do a lot of drills where they were in the red zone. And it was a couple times where he pulled the ball down and ran. And Arthur Smith talked about last season the Falcons not being able to, keep quarterbacks contained as far as the mobile quarterbacks. So this is good practice for those defensive linemen and for the defense to learn how to contain the mobile quarterback. So when Marcus Mariota does take off and run, I'm not necessarily looking at how many yards he's getting and things of that nature. They're really watching to see if these players are practicing and learning how to contain a quarterback and keep mobile quarterbacks in the pocket, because nowadays in the NFL, you're going to see, numerous mobile quarterbacks, and you have to learn how to contain these guys. But Marcus Mariota so far has been one of the standouts. He's coming into his leadership role, and it looks like he's having a lot of fun out there with the guys and things of that nature. Another standout on the offensive side of the ball has been Drake London, the first round wide receiver out of USC. He had a nice contested catch against D. Alford in one-on-one drills yesterday. And I'm not surprised to see Drake London out there balling. He is one of those guys that I mentioned when we drafted him, that he's very good at high pointing the football, very good in one-on-one situations because of his size, 6'5", 200 plus pounds. So he's one of those guys that's a very big, athletic wide receiver, and he's a playmaker. So I'm not surprised to see that he's been dominating that practice in these one-on-one drills and things of that nature. But I am interested to see him play in these preseason games when they put the pads on and things of that nature against other opponents. I'm very interested to see how well he plays in those preseason games. Other standouts on the offensive side of the ball, of course, Kyle Pitts, the unicorn. He's been playing really well out there. Looks a lot more crisp and running his routes in his second year. Last year, he did end up making the Pro Bowl as a rookie. So I expect big things from Kyle Pitts this year. More touchdowns in the red zone from Kyle Pitts this season. And he had a touchdown thrown to him by Marcus Mariota when they were doing the red zone drills, both him and Drake London. So he's looked very good at practice as well in his one-on-one drills. Kyle Pitts has been dominant as usual. And out of the running backs, Damian Williams to me has been one of the surprising stars on the offensive side of the ball. Coach Smith talked about Damian Williams, the former Kansas City Chiefs and Chicago Bears running back, that he's been a veteran out there kind of coaching up the younger running backs like Tyler Algier and these guys, and Avery Williams. He's been one of those guys that has been coaching up the young running backs, and he's looked very impressive, not only running the ball out of the backfield, but he's done a good job of catching the ball out of the backfield. So I think he's definitely going to be a sleeper that not many people are talking about, but I think Damian Williams is going to have a big impact on this team this season. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, as far as guys that have been stepping up and have been standouts so far, there's been a couple names that's been thrown out there. But first off, we want to talk about the defensive line. From what I'm hearing coming out of camp, the defensive line has been dominant over the offensive line in the first parts of training camp, and that's possibly why the fights broke out. So those guys up front, Timmy Horn, Anthony Rush, and these guys, they've been looking really good, and they said that they've been dominating the offensive line. So I'm very interested to see how these guys look in the preseason as well. Monday will be the first padded practice, so we'll be able to get a little bit better glimpse of how well these guys are actually playing once they put pads on and things of that nature, and kind of start some live drills. Also, Michael Walker has been one of those guys that's been mentioned as a possible standout. He actually has been doing a lot of different things this year. Yesterday, they showed him out on the edge as an edge rusher, which I thought the Falcons should have been using Michael Walker as an edge rusher over the last couple seasons, because he's one of those guys that did rush the passer in college. So I'm very interested to see how much he rushes the passer this year as an outside linebacker. But I thought that was really interesting that I seen him out there on the edge. Also, Troy Anderson as one of the linebackers, they said he's looked really good. He's been flying around. We know he's a very good athlete. And due to Deion Jones being injured, we do need another linebacker that's good in coverage. And we need a guy that's going to fly around and do some of those jobs that Deion Jones would normally do. So they say he's looked really good, and he's been getting some snaps with the ones. And also on the defensive side of the ball, AJ Terrell and D. Alford in the secondary. Both of those guys to me have looked really good so far. Of course, AJ Terrell, we know is an elite corner in the NFL, but D. Alford is a guy that I've been talking about and raving about before the training camp even kicked off. I did a whole video on him, and he's looked really good. The former CFL cornerback. He did have a couple nice breakups yesterday in practice. He did also have really good coverage on Drake London. Even though Drake London made a contested catch, D. Alford does a good job of finding the football, and he does a good job of competing for the football when it's in the air. He did compete with Drake London, even though Drake London out jumped him for the football. He still made an attempt to try to intercept the ball or bat the ball away. So I definitely think that he's one of those guys that has great awareness as a cornerback, which you need in this league, are guys that's going to affect the football and try to take the football away. But with that being said, that's pretty much been the standouts at camp. But I do want to mention one last thing on the offensive side of the ball that I didn't mention, and that's on the offensive line. The battle between Jalen Mayfield and Isaiah, I believe his name, is Elijah Wilkinson. Elijah Wilkinson has been one of those guys so far that has been a standout as well at camp so far. And Arthur Smith did state that he's been getting most of the snaps at 1 over Jalen Mayfield at that left guard position. So that's another position that we're going to need to watch moving forward. But with that being said, this being your boy Jew, I'll holler at you guys in the next video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.